My dad was not a perfect man by any means and is not a perfect man by any means, not even close. But I'll tell you what, some of the most important things that I know about being a man came from him. Not because he always got it right, but because he showed up in ways that I didn't understand until I became a man myself. So, this episode today is not about bashing or idealizing fathers, it's about learning from imperfect men and choosing what legacy that we as men ourselves now want to build. So if that's something you're interested in hearing more about, stay tuned. Hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you guys are watching or listening from. Welcome to Better Men Daily. Real quick, if you guys are enjoying this content and you are on YouTube, please go ahead and drop a like for me below. It helps boost us in the algorithm. And if you're on YouTube as well, please go ahead and subscribe if you feel like you are getting a lot out of this content. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then welcome. Thank you for tuning into another episode. Today we're going to talk about dads. Like I mentioned in the beginning, my dad was not a perfect man growing up, and he is not a perfect man now. He never will be a perfect man, and that's okay. We're going to talk about the reality of growing up with flawed fathers, and we're going to talk about the good, the bad, everything in between, and we're going to talk about some lessons that I learned from these kinds of things, and hopefully some lessons that you guys can take as well. Now, I don't know about you guys, and I don't know if even I maybe learned this from my father, but I'm the kind of guy that anytime someone says, do you want the good news first or the bad news first? I always ask for the bad news first. Honestly, I don't know why. I'm sure there's a shrink out there or something that can probably dig into that and figure out. But regardless, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that my dad got wrong when I was growing up. Some of the biggest issues are probably the issues that a lot of you guys who are my age, especially, share in the flaws of your fathers, which was things like they worked too much, or my father, he was not always super emotionally present. He would shut down a lot. He wasn't the most patient man on the planet. He struggled with anger issues and kind of handed some of those down to me myself. But the good news is that he stayed. He never missed a baseball game of mine. He supported me to the death in everything that I did in my life. He provided for us at all costs, even if that meant him working ridiculous hours. And he taught me to fight for something. He taught me the model of what it looks like to have something worth fighting for in a household, and to have a family that you need to take care of, and to be your duty and to be your responsibility. Now, I know there are some people who are probably listening, some of you guys out there who probably didn't have fathers in the household at all, or you had absentee fathers who were maybe there sometimes or not there others, or maybe you even had a dad who was there physically but very much just absent in every other aspect. Now, all I will say and encourage to you guys, because this channel is about lifting other men up, you guys are not weak for wanting your father's presence. That is something that is ingrained in us. And if you were a Christian, that is something that is written on our hearts to seek out the Father. Now, you're not doomed to repeat his mistakes either, and that's something that I've struggled with as well. I've even talked to my therapist personally about this, that I'm afraid of repeating the mistakes that my father made when I was growing up, because I have a son on the way and I don't want to do the same things that he did. And my therapist kind of already explained this to me in a great way, that the fact that I'm even addressing that or bringing that up as a concern shows me I'm already more aware of some of the mistakes that my father made that I'm not going to repeat, and that I'm already one step ahead of him. Now, there's also a lot of lessons that I didn't know that I was learning at the time, but sometimes a man teaches you how to be by showing what not to be, and other times it's the little quiet things that you don't notice until years later. So some of the good that I learned from my father, and some of the good that we can instill as fathers in our generation, are things like discipline, work ethic, protection, sacrifice. I remember vividly multiple times when I was a kid being upset at the time that my dad had to go work 70-hour weeks, or that he had to go travel on the road for periods for work. But what I didn't know at the time was that he was also sacrificing. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to be home with us as much as we wanted him home. But he had a duty and a responsibility to provide for us, and that's what he did. He put aside what he wanted, and he did what was best for us. And that was something that I didn't really notice or appreciate until I found myself in similar situations as a grown man. I also vividly remember a lot of things that my dad said to me, and a lot of things that my dad did for me. Sayings that still stick with me to this day. I don't know why this one particular pops out in my head, but I don't know if it was maybe after a baseball game that I had lost, or maybe I didn't make a sports team or something. My dad told me that winners never quit and quitters never win. And there was a lot of those little sayings that when I'm 10 years old and I'm miserable that I just got cut from the baseball team, I didn't really give a crap. I probably should have, because if I had taken that and ran with it, 15 years ago, then maybe I'd be in a bit of a further ahead situation today than I am now. And thank God I'm finally on the correct path, but it could have saved me a lot of heartache. And that's obviously why he was telling me that. And there's a lot of other sayings like that as well that I remember. I also vividly remember one year when I didn't make an all-star team that he felt that I should have made when I was playing like Little League baseball. And I remember him calling the league and screaming and freaking out on the league and lighting them all up and catching bodies, metaphorically speaking, all because his son didn't make it when he felt he deserved to. He defended me fiercely and stood up for me and stood by me, even in times where I didn't notice it as a little kid, but I notice it now, and that's the important part. And as I started getting deeper in my faith, and as I started going through therapy, and as I started to prepare to be a father myself, I learned the importance of forgiveness in these paternal relationships. So I'll say this directly because I know that I was here once, and once again, field notes. Today's Fields Notes is, if you're still carrying resentment towards your dad, it's time to put that down. It is. Forgiveness isn't excusing what happened. It's just freeing yourself from the burden of what happened. And this is the tough part for me, and I think the thing that I struggled with was, for the longest time, I looked at my father as a superhero. And in a lot of ways, he still is a superhero to me. But when you look at someone on that level and then start to grow up and see them doing things that you don't like, either to you or in general, you start looking at them as a super villain. But what we really should be looking at our fathers as is what we look at ourselves as, and that's just human. Our dads also had dads who probably did things that they didn't like and things that they messed up on. And we're gonna be dads, or we are dads, and we're gonna do things that our kid grows up and when he's 18 says, yeah, my dad messed up with all of that stuff. He did a bad job here and there. And that's okay, because once you start looking at your father as a human instead of this being who can do no wrong and has superpowers, then it doesn't sting as much. Like I said, it's not excusing what happened, but it's understanding and having empathy in the fact that these guys also did the best they could in some cases. And in some cases, like we mentioned earlier, maybe they didn't. And in those cases, you're not wrong for wanting your father's presence. And that's okay. And that's where I lean on my faith. And I know I can't speak on something that I didn't go through because my father was there despite the flaws that he had. But we are ingrained in our hearts to go after the ultimate father and seek after him. And that's what hopefully can give you guys some peace. And the freeing part about all of these things that I'm talking about right now is that you can honor your father without repeating his mistakes. So we're going to do another challenge in this episode, guys. Every man has to choose. Do I become what I resent, or do I redeem it in my own life as a father and as a man and as a husband? So, my challenge for you guys today is to heal before you hand the pain to your kids. When I realized that I was having a child, the first three things I did was go deeper into my faith, go to therapy, and go get my body back by exercising and dieting. And we'll obviously talk more about those topics in a different episode. We don't have enough time in this one to go into all of that. But that's what you got to do. You got to heal, guys. You got to heal. And then the other thing you have to do is speak what was never spoken to you. If your father never told you, I love you, or I'm proud of you, or if your father never said, good job, son, make sure you tell your son good job and that you love him and that you're proud of him, because that matters as much to him as it mattered to you not hearing it. And then the final thing that I challenge you to do as a father is not just be present like I talk about all the time, but try your best to be consistent too. Because erratic behavior, or one day you're the best father in the world and the next day you're just an impatient slug who can't be around anyone without popping off, is going to confuse your child as much as it's confusing you when it's going on up there. And that goes all the way back to healing. Now, you don't have to be perfect. No one is asking anyone to be perfect because it's not possible. But you have to be there, and you have to be consistent, and you got to give them what you feel you didn't have. And the cool thing about manhood, and the cool thing about the legacy of like a channel like this, like Better Men Daily, is that each generation that goes by, the knowledge gets stronger, the people get wiser, the tools get better, and your dad may not have had it all together. That's very possible, just like me and just like a lot of other people. But maybe he had just enough to get you started. And now that you can get started, the rest, that's your job to figure out now. And then you're going to pass that down to your son. So here's one last question that I want to leave you guys with. What is one thing that your father, even unintentionally, passed down to you guys that you're going to carry forward in your life as a father to your son? So that's going to be it for this episode, guys. I want all of us to come together on this one as men, and I want you guys to rally in the comments and let me know some of the things that you guys learned from your fathers, whether it was intentional or unintentional, and maybe we can share wisdom with one another so that we can be better fathers. But if you guys enjoyed this episode and you are on YouTube, please go ahead and like this video. It helps boost me in the algorithm and get my content out to more people. And if you guys are enjoying all of the episodes out so far, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel as well. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you continue to for future episodes. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I appreciate you tuning into this episode of Better Men Daily, and we will see you next time. Take care.